Matt McGrath, District Ranger here at Flagstaff.
Neil Chapman's Flagstaff Fire Department.
Great, and we'll go online and we will go with Jacqueline.
Good morning. My name is Jacqueline Corbin. I'm from NRCS. Unfortunately, we aren't able to travel at this time, so I couldn't meet you in person, but yeah, thanks.
It's good to have you here, Jacqueline. Thank you. And Lisa.
Good morning, Lisa Bolton, Forest Health Project Coordinator at SRP.
Travis.
Marty.
Oh, sorry, wrong. Right. Kelsey.
Good morning, Kelsey Metzger, environmental planner from SWCA.
Kelsey and Annie.
Yeah, hi. I'm a little late. My name is Annie and I am with SWCA. I currently sit in Michigan, but I was in Arizona for about 20 years. And I'm very excited to be here.
Thanks, Annie. Okay, I think that's it. Anybody, did I miss anybody online? Okay, great. We're going to start with the Flagstaff Ranger District operations update. And we have Cody here, which is really nice to have Cody. It's a little change from Jake. I think Jake's traveling back from vacation. So thanks, Cody, for being here. I really appreciate it.
Is night coming up? Sharon here. Should it be popping up there? Just there you go. Okay, cool. I need Matt. Would you mind?
Yeah.
Going down eventually. So starting from the north, going to the south. I think that's what Jake did last time. Mainly just our operations update. It was updated on 3/10, so it's pretty current. Working on that award on Durfur. It's out for signature right now. What I believe. Hawk and Little Wing. Those are planned awarded sales. We can scroll down. Wing East. Here's some actual operations. Still hauling out of there. They're still doing a lot of work. It seems like there's a bit of a lag.
There's the delay. It'll get there.
Yeah, they're still going strong in Wing East. There's a table down here that tells us about how many loads are coming out a day, but I won't see it until we get down to the south. Our Schultz project is finished. Walker Hill finished. Some closeout work left to do. A1 Mountain South. Still a finished project. Still, I think actually fully closed out. I don't think it just got updated on the map yet. A1 North Wing West, Little Wing I already mentioned. Our awarded sales upcoming. We can just keep scrolling down to the south. It's gonna be a quick update.
Real quick,
Yes.
I feel like I was talking to you guys at some point about hand thinning projects around the Schultz tank timber sale area. That stuff on the map there.
I don't think those shapes specifically are. I mean, I know the work was completed mechanically, and I think there's a small section of some hand thin left.
Okay.
That is going to be done in the future.
Cool.
You're talking about the Schultz tank mechanical work or the hand thing?
Mechanical's done.
Yeah.
And then you guys were saying the hand thinning stuff is looking great, but I just haven't seen it yet.
I can.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's in that same location actually in the Schultz.
It's
in
immediately
the same
south of
shape.
the tank
Okay, thank you.
and west of Sunset Trail. You know how much time you spend on the trails out there, and over to Swell in between those trails.
I know the trail's based on your social media.
Yeah.
So Southside Airport, they were back in there in February, but slowed down with the snow. You can see a lot of that evidence off of Lake Mary Road now, which is really sweet.
That is very sensitive.
It's a very sensitive, yeah, and my keyboard doesn't really work on that.
I've noticed.
Yeah.
It's like, why did you give me this job?
Sorry, Matt, put you in the spot. Marshall, a ton of progress going out there. Of course, they got a stop work order, and our cleared to go back on, but it sounds like Trevor might have some more information on that later, for them to come back out, but currently offline to an extent. Newman Park Frog Tank, they were working in there in February and out now. But they got a bunch of stuff cleaned up. It's looking really good. And then we have Willard and Horse Park. Those are still offline. Horse Park's contract's ending shortly, but really no work to be done in there. So it's a small amount of closeout work. That's Frog Tank. Bootleg Antelope, another R4 project in their pocket. Warmer Mountain, still offline. That's the Devon Forest project. I think that about covers it. Any questions? Excellent, great.
I'll add Firewise, took advantage of the snow a couple weeks ago for our only machine pile burning of the season. Got some out by some down at additional ones down around Horse Park because the piles along the 700 road are never ending. But then mostly around like A1 South and some over Walker Hill. So again, kind of the less sensitive areas for pile burning because we knew the snow was going to be gone pretty quick as it is now. It's supposed to be 70 degrees and sunny next week. So looking at the week after that, potentially for probably a very small broadcast burn window. I've been talking about the Weatherford burn, which is along 556 outside of Timberline forever. I don't know if the conditions will line up just right for that. That's kind of our priority, but more likely wind up out at Kendrick Park or maybe some more stuff out at Greater Sinks on the southwest side of the district. But all depends on what the next week looks like, how things dry out. But the snow is going pretty quick, as everybody can see, and things are drying out. So we'll have our short window and then move to what comes after that. That's the Forest Service thing.
Questions on that? Forest Service? Like you were thinking.
Yeah, I know. I just
Yeah,
wanted
I
to
saw that thinking.
slow them down a little bit. I mean,
Yeah,
Jen usually runs through.
I know.
No, I don't think I have any questions. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks a lot, guys. I really appreciate it. And there are a few people that joined late online. We'd let you do introductions. Sarah.
Hey everyone, good to see you virtually. I'm Sarah Davenport with the Ecological Restoration Institute.
Thanks, Sarah. And then Coral.
Hello, everyone. Coral Evans, Northern Zone Director for U.S. Senator Mark Kelly.
Great. Thanks, Coral. And Paul.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Paul Chapman with Camel Global here out of McLeod, California.
Good to see you, Paul. Good to see all of you. Thank you. Did I miss anybody else that came in late online? Unfortunately, we were going to have Mike Stoddard today talk about ecological trends on the southern slopes of the peaks. And this morning he emailed me and said he was terribly sick. And so we will reschedule Mike. And so what I thought we could do to fill in with that is one, talk about the Upper Rio Thinning campaign, outreach campaign that we want to run. It's really good you're here so we can talk to you because you weren't at the initial meeting, Matt. I'd like to do that. And then everybody else, if you can think about something that you would like to share with the partnership about some of the larger projects that you're doing, if there's something that you think we could all collaborate on or assist each other on, that would be great. So I thought we could do a round robin, which we don't really have time to do a lot of the time. So I think sometimes that's a good thing, just to hear from everybody, because a lot of times we don't. So we'll give you a little time while we're talking about the Upper Rio outreach campaign to think about what you might share with the partnership, and or if there's something where, hey, I could use some help, or do you have ideas, so just start thinking about that. And we'll switch over to the Upper Rio outreach campaign, and I guess thinning outreach campaign is what we're calling it. And a small group, and I'll just open it up and I'll let Jay and Neil chime in. And of course, Matt, because you probably know something about this, but a small group of us initially met. It was Jay, Neil, myself, and Jake. And we were talking about the Highway 180 corridor because the Forest Service is hearing a lot of flack from the public. Not a lot, but it's the loud minority that we're hearing from. And I might let Matt talk about that. There were letters, editorials to the Daily Sun, which Jake forwarded to me, which I was happy, and I forwarded it to them. And so we thought that we could really try to assist as the partnership. One thing I will preface this on too is that we're going to be applying for some community initiative grant funding through Coconino County. They have small pots of money, grants for specific projects. So what we need to do is really put together a plan so we can apply for that, get the funding, and then we can, operationalize it. So I'll let you sort of talk about that too, Matt.
Sure. So this came up, we have been hearing a little bit about some of the work that's been going on. I'll say it's less, like taking out the whole, it's way less than we used to hear. Like when I got here in 2019, I would hear we were doing field trips in Mountain Air for the school, for that school out project. People were upset they were cutting the trees. Like people in Mountain Air don't complain about that anymore. And even like with the 3 Echo, the prescribed fire we were doing regularly last 2 years, folks get it. But we always have, I don't need to pick on people, but folks moving into town who don't quite understand, and they have this idea of what the forest is supposed to look like. That op-ed had a great line. It said, "Save the trees from forest restoration." Was that my, like, so that's the kind of folks that we're dealing with. And that, really the Upper Rio area is just a really particularly beloved area for a lot of people. And especially like the Hard Prairie area and working further up the peaks. And so we saw this a few years ago with the Hard Prairie meadow restoration. But we have, I won't say aggressive, they're correct, but prescriptions for all of these sales that are going on out there. Things are going to look a lot different. And I think everybody in this room thinks it's going to look great, knows it's going to look great when it's done. But like for folks who have not been out to Hard Prairie for a year and then all of a sudden I drive out to 151 every fall. That's just my one time every fall. Guess what? Next fall, after Durfur and Hawk get going, and when the East is moving along, and it's going to look a lot different. So really, it was just preparing people for all the work that's going out there. I would like to say there's some elements of a victory lap in there also. The work's not done yet, but it's all getting going, and things are going great in that area. So letting folks know what's going on and just tamping down some of the surprise. I think when people get out there for the first time and see just how different it looks, because like if you drive out there now and you drive by Wing East, it's kind of like the old Chimney Springs. Like you drive by Chimney Springs and like, okay, this looks great, and then you get into the experimental forest and you're like, this looks terrible. But then you're gonna get into Wing East and it looks great, and then soon as you keep driving up 180, both Durfur and Hawk are gonna look the same. Wing West right across the highway is gonna also be the same, and so just getting out in front of that before the work is done and before the people really start complaining, more of an educational effort. I think it's part of our ongoing educational effort on helping folks understand what our Northern Arizona forests are supposed to look like. So I very much appreciate the folks on the partnership helping us out with that, because it's always great for people to hear from someone other than us.
Right.
Because there's always so much going on around the Forest Service. Whether it's on the ground or other stuff, that our message often gets lost in translation, and people have this other idea of what's going on. So having normal local folks, not like Cody and I aren't local, having normal local folks sharing that message just really resonates better a lot of the time.
Yeah, for sure. And just staying away from the government in general, although Flagstaff's a little different, but you get out to Morgan Lake and they really don't like the government. So I think, it's just that other voice. And one thing I'll say too that Jake talked about is that a lot of the treatments out there will be savanna treatments. And so you talk about it really changing, like that's really changing. And we have to really try to help and explain that to people. And I think it's going to be at a scale also that we're not used to. And also the logging trucks are going to increase dramatically as well. And so there's just a lot that's going to happen. So like you're saying, get in front of it versus, you know, being proactive versus being reactive is much better. Yeah. And so I think it's a really good idea. And, you know, the folks, just like you were saying, the folks that lived here a long time get it. But they're, you know, we just have constant change in the population.
Yeah. Last season, it's only last season, when Snowball removed about 4.5 acres of trees to relocate the lower chairlift. And we're getting calls that they're clear cutting Aspen Corner, right? And so that's kind of that misinformation that we're hoping to get out in front of, is that the people won't be, you know, the community won't be freaking out that, oh, why are you clear cutting Aspen Corner? And just get angry calls and emails. Avoid that.
Yeah. And Neil luckily lives out there, so he's got a thumb on it, which is really nice, you know, with the community. And so I'm gonna lean on Neil a lot to like help us connect with that community. Of course, it's gonna be all of Flagstaff, but really I think our focus will be there at first, you know, that 180 corridor to try to really, because those are the people that are really gonna see it like all the time, you know, as they go to and from home. And so I think that's really our initial focus. And then, but still, it doesn't mean visitors and other people from Flagstaff aren't gonna also listen and hear what we have to say.
We were on the Jeff Kennedy show a couple weeks ago talking about this. We were at a public meeting we held in University Heights, mentioned this. We're gonna start putting out some social media when we have some news on new operations. We have a neighborhood association in the Ward Valley or Baderville, depending on what you want to call it, area. And I've been emailing them about getting this on their agenda. So I'll dabble between representing the fire department and a resident meeting. And yeah, just really, I mean, we've all been pushing hard for this. I mean, the Hartbury NEPA was signed in like 2010, you know, so it's been a while. And we're really excited. And so we just want to make sure we keep getting the news out the best we can to everybody. Yeah, just tag teaming it. Everybody here, you know, I don't want to say you're a PIO. I hate on fires when they were like, everybody's a PIO. And it's like, no, we're not. I have no training in being a PIO. That's a task book. And, but you know, we can all, when people are in the community and have questions about it, all of us here can talk in really important ways about the work going on up there.
I'll add, and I haven't even been able to talk to you since when we were meeting with Matt and Aaron last Monday, I think it was, and this got brought up a little bit, and Patrice this is her district. Of course, politicians want to be out in the lead of everything. And so I've got some things to talk over with you, Ann, about like the CI funding and how, you know, like specific things that she may be wanting to fund through that. And then she also has other funding through her district stuff that for meetings. But yeah, she kind of decided to take a keen interest in this to the point that like, I want to be out in front. I want to be doing this and I want to do this. So yeah, we just need to sit down and kind of, as we work through that plan, see where the county, you know, fills in roles and where they lead, where they don't lead, you know, because, you know, our county, they like to be out front of everything.
I've noticed.
You notice that? Yeah, me too.
I'll send you some info. One thing we did over the last year, we got like $3,500 from IAFC, International Association of Fire Chiefs. That was originally for like wildfire risk reduction style messaging to short-term rentals. And then we steered it away from that towards just general messaging. And we, working with our Discover Flagstaff team, we did some sort of digital media buy, which basically means when you're opening an app on your phone and advertisements pop up, within a geo-fenced area, if you were somehow not from like, if you were not a City of Flagstaff resident, but like a visitor, somehow they know that a thing would pop up about fire restrictions and being fire aware. And maybe it's even something we can do for like Upper Rio projects or something. So visitors in the area, and you know, an advertisement pops up on that. And it was, I don't know when they say interaction. Does that mean that somebody scrolled past it or does that mean they clicked on it? I don't know what it means, but it was something for like $3,500. We had something like 200,000 plus interactions. So it could potentially be a way for us to test out and get some messaging out there.
Yeah, because I think we all agree with what Ann said, that this is more than just the Fort Valley corridor, because that was, Patrice asked me, she's like, "So should we go Cheshire North?" I'm like, "No, this is a Flagstaff thing." I mean, everybody goes to this area. Everybody sees this, so everybody drives 180. So no, this is a Flagstaff campaign, in my opinion, that, we need to, there may be some really specific things out in Fort Valley. We talked about, where are some good places to meet, and I think Teresa's wanting to ask Full Observatory, because they have kind of some new meeting spaces and things potentially of where we could use that facility. The fact that they're getting ready to, going to try to do some thinning out there. I mean, we could tie a lot of stuff together in this community and just get the word out. But that's kind of the key thing, I think, from the county's perspective, is that we have specific projects that we've invested in that they're going to want to really spell out why the county's spending tax dollars, local tax dollars on these projects. That's kind of a message that Therese wants to get out there.
Talk about this outline that we came up with. And it's really draft because I sent it to these guys and none of you guys.
Well, we haven't. I was going to wait till tomorrow with the board meeting.
That's
Talk to you
okay.
about it.
Yeah, you didn't know we were gonna have time here, so it's.
Yeah, I didn't know we were even
Not
going to
even,
discuss this.
not a problem. But, and you guys can chime in, but just to give you an idea, we're thinking about doing it in phases and initially like holding 2 community meetings. One would be the Fort Valley Neighborhood Association. I think that's the one Neil knows. And then I didn't know if there was another group that we could pull in from out in that area. And of course, everybody in Flagstaff is going to be invited, but we're going to try to target at least some of those groups, because those are the groups. Like the letter to the editor was somebody that lived out there, I think off of 151, right? Yeah. So I didn't know if there were other groups out there
I think
besides that one.
Fort Valley is like the last organized neighborhood. I don't think Kendrick Park or Harper have. There's probably some email. Well, actually, like the Snowball, what is Private Pine Mountain Road? There's like a dozen homes up there. As an email list, I remember being able to access for up there. They have like an HOA and a point of contacts. We can work on it.
What's it called?
Private Pine Mountain Road.
Okay.
It's just past Camp Colton on the right. It's not a private road. They called it Private Pine Mountain Road to deter the public from going in there. But it's a good, crafty name. I think Hidden Hollow we've got a neighborhood list for that area. I'm not sure about the Magdalena, but we've got 2 firefighters that live in that north, kind of behind the Cheshire gas station, that we can work with that community. And then we just recently, I think the county has a setup. We just got the city folks dialed in with a Nextdoor account that's not just like me posting, it's like the city posting. So Nextdoor is a pretty good resource for getting it sorted as well. People love to rant down that one again.
Yeah, it can be good, it can be bad.
Yeah, so it's like post and then never click back.
Is that a draft for like public outreach? A plan for how you guys do it step by step? How do we get our hands on that one?
You can actually, if you want to be on the planning team, so draft is not funny. So is DFFM interested?
We've got several projects that are gonna be right in this exact same kind of thing. Lake Elaine is the one that I'm thinking of, that's off the top of my head. It's so early in the planning phase right now, but as you guys know, that neighborhood is very affluent, and everyone thinks that it's their 100-acre woods. So I like to call it when people own their little place.
Yeah.
That it might be useful to be able to be part of that and to help take lessons learned from what you're doing to implement in that area.
Absolutely, you're on the list. I'm gonna go through this list too and tell you who I have so far. We'll definitely welcome you to help us. Yeah, that would be awesome. And then the other idea for phase 1 would be print and distribute one of the many GFFP digital printed outreach pieces that we have. And so that could be a decision. I was thinking, I was putting this together, that GFFP has already done so much that maybe we can just work off of what we've done. So we're not paying for designing fees and so much of what, the most of the cost, bulk of the cost is. So we have some pieces potentially that we could also put for Daily Sun again, like we've done before, because some of them are designed as newspaper inserts. They're on our website, by the way, if any of you want to look at it, under products, and you can see the newspaper inserts that we have. So I was thinking of having those outreach materials available for the meetings, but or depending on how much funding we get, whether we could put it into the newspaper, the Daily Sun. So those are some items to think about. And like I said, it's on the products tab on our website if you want to look at some of those. And then thinking about what we learned in phase one, I thought, especially as we do the public meetings, we hear feedback from the public, then really target our phase two to what we hear. So I'll give you an example. When we were launching FWPP, it was so novel. Helicopters, cable, again, like people were freaking out. Yeah. And they were like, you're going to use helicopters? You're going to take huge trees. We were hearing this at the public meetings, like, we're going to do something about this. So we put together these harvesting methods fact sheets. So we had these at our outreach events, so we can still use those. I don't know if they're as necessary now as they were back then, but we can use them at our outreach events. And they're, it's very, not a lot of verbiage, a lot of pictures, really simple to understand. And people would say that to us, we pick up that helicopter. We had one for helicopter, we had one for cable, we had one for prescribed fire, on and on for every, for ground-based mechanical. And we explained it to them and they're like, oh, and you could just see, it's just because they don't know. And when they know, the temperature just goes, it's almost like a light switch, how fast it goes on and off. And so we've done things like this. So what I was thinking was, let's get a temperature, because we haven't done this in a long time, right, Neil? Not a really big concerted effort. And so of the public, and then we can target our outreach to what we're hearing. Of course, that's not, really a sample size and something that's statistical, but at the same time, I think we're going to get a feel from the community, and especially the people, I think, that are living out there, just getting a read.
Yeah.
You want to add something?
I think you're right. I remember that when it came up and people were like, well, if you're a helicopter logging, you must be cutting some big trees to pay for that. It's like, no.
Yeah. And those fact sheets are also on our website, if you just want to get an idea of what they look like. But they were really effective, we found. And so we're thinking for phase two, once we get a feel for the community and what people are thinking, then potentially we could post some kiosks like at 151 and other prominent areas. We would, lean on the Forest Service to help us with where they should be located. And again, I was thinking we do have some kiosks that are already designed, potentially that we could just duplicate. So it would really be printing fees and construction fees of the, the frame. And I thought that might be a really good way to go. We have a couple of kiosks at Fort Tuthill that have been used over and over as demonstration areas and learning areas. And so I was thinking potentially of just duplicating those. And I think when we first did those, we said we should put these in different areas around Flagstaff. The one that I'm thinking of, and again, it's on our website under products, is we had as professional artists do this beautiful, huge kiosk, and it has this image of the forest, and then it talks about the different components of it and how it relates. And then that kiosk itself is also available electronically. So if somebody were to visit it in person, they could see, hey, this is electronic, and they can use the QR code, and then they can also see it electronically. Neil's pulling it up, and want to show it to them? Sure. It's pretty cool. That's a good idea. And electronically, then you could get even more information. So you get a layer, and ERI helped us with this. It was a big project. Yeah, it was really, I wish you were here. It was so much fun. And there are different layers, like, when you click on the different bubbles for each component in the forest, then there are different layers of information as far as research goes, and it goes, sometimes it's a little lighter, and it can get pretty heavy in there too, as far as the related research, So I really like this. I don't know about all of you, but the artist that did this was just incredible. And then we have also side panels that go with that kiosk, which you can show them too, Neil. The side panels, I think it's on the website as well. It's just a different link. That also go with this, and a lot of it is talking about really, fire history and fire scars and what do they mean, and so people can really get a sense and understanding of why we do what we do here with forest management. Yeah, I wish you had been here. You would have loved it. Amy was on it, Hilo, and who else? Or other people. It's just a bunch of ERI folks and me. It was really great. When we put this together, we did the side panels.
Where the side
Oh,
panels?
it would be,
Oh,
Jake can help you.
Right down. Not that far.
Yeah.
At the top line of, they're right next to it, that middle one. Yeah, that's Fort Valley.
So when I click on this
No.
guy, no,
In the main body of the thing, right?
oh, right here.
Nope, up one more, sorry. Right there. That hill.
There you go. That's it.
Oh, there they are. Okay.
Right. And see the side panels. So then you can also look at them closer, each panel. There you go.
We can update some of these things because it's got some
Yep.
FWPP numbers in there, like plant treatments that we can just.
Yeah.
update some of those things.
Yeah, there were
Generally.
things I noticed too in there that I was like, oops, we're gonna have to fix a couple of these things. Yeah, for sure, for sure. But it's not if there's a fire that's going to happen, it's when, so it's that kind of messaging. And there's another side panel, I think, that has also fire scars. Do you pull that one up? Talks about fire scars and fire history. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and then on that one panel too, it had, it showed the historic forest versus the forest now, which I think is really, just those pictures alone tell, it's a big story. There it is. Yeah, it's huge. Cody, did you have anything to add just from like your experiences, or you're out there and I'm sure they're yelling at you all this.
Well, we definitely, when we get approached by the public, packing and marking in trees, we would, never say that we're here to log. It's pure forest restoration. And then I always love just communicating what the paint color means. I think that's a often overlooked part of it. That really paints the story. And we have a guy in our office right now who's been working on like a pamphlet. I don't know if it's necessarily for this effort or what, but just talking about the broad strokes of forestry. Silviculturalist, that comes first, and we implement it. This is what the colors mean. We can do it through a variety of different methods.
Yeah, we can never remind them enough that orange is leave.
Yeah. Something I bring up every meeting.
Yes.
I've been going down to the Munns Park meetings. We hear good things about what they're doing. They have a lot of operations in their own backyard, on the 700 road corridor. They've been very happy. You care more about UTVs there.
You said there was a pamphlet developed, or?
Yeah,
Are you
working on it, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It started as a kind of a trifold, pamphlet. It's really hard to fit the information that you want to convey on that. I'm sure you all know that. So you might pivot to maybe some more, accompany it with some bullet points, so some more detailed. I think it's a good start.
Has a timeline on that?
It's actually getting quite close. We had a spent a little bit more time on our firewood permits this year and making a new program for that, new maps and new pamphlets to accompany that map. So we just sent that off to the printers, and our next the next phase was to get these into a printer. So by the end of the month, I think we'll be done with that pamphlet.
Great. Yeah, we'd love to see those.
And kind of tying into some of those community outreach components, especially in the Fort Valley 180 corridor. The ENFF will be implementing the DERFA project in coordination with the Forest Service here. And with that, we're bringing in a lot of partners. One of those, we actually formed a partnership with Historic Brewing, who will be releasing pretty proud of this name, Feller Buncher Hazy IPA. Wow. So you've got one on the can, just saying. But anyways, with that, they're really excited about community engagement and education, specifically around this kind of work in our community. And a couple of the ideas that have been floated, and we're kind of pinning down details on the timing and dates, et cetera. They want to do like a beer release party, community volunteer type day along the 180 corridor, as well as like a forestry presentation / trivia night kind of deals. And with that, I'm sure there'll be opportunities for partners to jump in and partake in discussing some of these priorities, why we're doing this, et cetera. So that could be a good like alignment of to this focus. Yeah.
That would be incredible.
Nice work getting the beer.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Thanks. It should be, as far as dates are concerned, I don't have a beat on the final date, but we're thinking the release will be in May, so somewhere like May, early June. So that should be good timing with operations starting.
Yeah, maybe, when we do that, we could do collaborate and do some kind of presentation, during that time, because we've done things like that with Mother Road. Mother Road did a FWPP beer. I forget what they called it though, but a special beer, but we had like even glasses, FWPP glasses that we gave away. It was a really big event. And I think when you combine beer with events, it always seems to draw more people, and just making it sort of more casual and fun. But let's talk about that, because I love, if you think they're amenable to this, that we could do some kind of program, and just make sure it's not super long, but we get the right message across that we need to. That's awesome. That's exciting. I had NFF on the list, but I took Sasha out and put your name there instead. Is that okay?
yes.
And I'm going to go through this list because others are interested in participating, and we want everybody that wants to join in, that you're able to. So for sure, that's awesome. That's great news. Anyway, on the kiosk, we can look at that more closely and make a final decision on that. But that was a potential of doing that, and just deciding on the numbers, how many we would want. So you could think about that, Cody, how many and where, what would be ideal for that area. And then as Neil was saying, like we're thinking about doing interviews on CAF, KNAU, other radio stations, letters to the editor with the Daily Sun. And then I was thinking we could do maybe an article in the Daily Sun and invite reporters and photographers from the Daily Sun to a thinning project so that we can explain what's going on. And that especially like the savanna treatments, like why are there no trees anymore? There used to be trees here, they're really going to freak out about that. So really talking about that and getting a full article, maybe hopefully a front page article in the Daily Sun with a reporter. And then, of course, Patrice would be welcome to come to any of this, Jay, especially if they're going to fund all this. And then we're also thinking about doing like coffee clutches, which we've done in the past for FWPP. We did a lot of coffee clutches with the supervisors and then their constituents. We could also do it with the city council if they're interested in doing something like that too. It doesn't have to be just the county, because the city, we can work with them as well if they want to do something like that. And so we actually sat with their constituents. I sat with Mandy Metzger and some of the others, Art and Matt, all the supervisors. We just went around and had coffee clutches, sat around with people and talked to them about what we were doing. So those were some of the things that I had on the outline for phase 2, but I'm open to other ideas. Like your idea is a great idea. And that could also help with it moving out to all of Flagstaff and not just being totally focused on 180. Ideas, other ideas.
And I suppose one other opportunity for an in-person kind of direct engagement would be the Overland Expo. As a lot of folks come out there, Overlanders love driving in the woods, and it could be a good opportunity. I know that's something that we're looking at doing. I forget who in collaboration, but
We reached out to them last year about having like a fire awareness table with one of our engines with it, and they were super excited and gave us full green light to do that. And then being like Memorial Day weekend between either like fire season and nobody wanting to do it, we just didn't do it. But they were very receptive to that sort of engagement.
Would it cost anything?
No, they weren't gonna charge us.
They weren't, okay.
it brings a lot of folks, both from the Flagstaff area and then, of course, the valley. And a lot of those people are coming up and might not have the best knowledge of, fire restrictions and fire-wise recreation.
Other ideas?
You ever do outreaches with scouting groups? Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, just to help get some information to the kids?
I think Mark Adams is in Boy Scouts now.
Is he?
Let's make him.
Yeah.
Mark
Adams.
Couple members that are in Scouting. Yeah, Drew Brown, I think I saw him in the parking lot.
Any other ideas? I just keep thinking about it. So the planning team and we haven't been in touch with the planning team yet because this is just so new. But this is who we thought. Some people know about it, some don't. We were thinking Nicole with TNC. Now we have Trevor with NFF, Lisa, SRP. And if you don't want to be on that, we can take you off as well. But we also, Billy from Babbitt Ranches, the Nordic Center. You want to talk about the Nordic Center a little bit? Because that is going to be treated, and I thought they would be a great arm for outreach. So you want to talk about?
I think that was one of the reasons for the development of that pamphlet. You could have it there at Senator Station and be able to hand it out to folks. Also, providing a map of the project, pretty simple map of the project. So when they have people there and they're worried about those trees being cut down, they can kind of show them what it's going to look like or what it should look like.
Yeah, do you have a contact? Like, who would we contact at the Nordic Center?
The head over there is Sydney Nyman. Demonin. And of course, Billy.
And then we have Kelsey from SWCA. We have Ari from Camp Colton. Because Camp Colton, of course, is right there. And just so you know, for context history, that GFFP received a cost share grant and we treated Camp Colton. So just a bit of history there. So that's just connecting more protections for that area or reduction in risk. We have, of course, myself, Neil, and Jay. And then we had Jake from the Forest Service. And then now I have Travis from DFFM. Anybody else interested?
I'm willing to help out where I can, take my share of abuse.
Okay. Happy, thanks for that, Campbell Global.
And if anything from here, let us know. We also have
Okay.
a new communications center. I'll take this to her and chat with her as well.
Okay, that sounds great. Yeah, because you might even have some materials we can use use as well, you know, versus just GFFP. It's just, I just know we've all done so much work in this area that we can really work off of what we already have developed. So that sounds great. Good. Well, that's helpful. Does anybody else have any other comments on this or anything to add? And Julia, if Patrice like wanted to meet with us, we could do that too, if that helps, you know. if
Yeah.
you Want to meet and talk about everything. Because I'd like to get, what I'd really like to do is get this plan pretty tight, so then we can write up the funding application.
Yeah, because there may be some specific things that need to be in that. That's
Right.
That's what I gotta
Give
get
us the
with.
money, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll get with you on that. That sounds great. And it's a great opportunity for us, so.
I'll just share kind of a secondhand story, but from the community around parks. Kaibab has a lot of treatments in that area. They got some pushback and like one Facebook page with 24 followers, but like people kind of freaked out and talking about somebody taking pictures of stumps basically, and then people getting upset. Well, the secondhand story is that I heard some of the same people that the Forest Service was meeting with, like trying to calm them down about the treatments. Later, after the treatments, came to them and said, hey, our insurance is going to drop us. Is there some way that you could help us with these trees that are like either on their property or nearby? And so it was really kind of interesting how it kind of came full circle there. So I know it's a different situation, but I just want to kind of share that. I mean, people's perspectives can change pretty quick, especially when it hits them financially.
And that's actually a really good point, because I think during these meetings that may come up, the whole insurance issue. And so I think we need to be prepared for that. Not that we give them any, I think we just have to have something figured out that we can say to them. And I think, Neil, you've been working on that probably more than most, on the insurance issue.
Yeah, it's great when they leave it up to just if you cut a few trees, but it's much worse than that. Yeah.
Okay, well, that is all I had on that, unless anybody can think of anything else. And then we will move to the DFFM update. It can take longer now.
Oh, yeah,
I also thought, if we have time, like I was saying, we could go around the room and folks could talk about some of the projects they're working on, or how we can collaborate, or if you have something where you need assistance or a question. So we'll move over to you, Travis.
Okay. I don't know if I'm gonna take longer,
It's
so
okay, because I know, it's like, this is what you had, so.
let's see if we got this up there. Again, my name is Travis Aldrich. I'm from DFFM. The way that we have separated our district is into 3 key areas of project work that we've got. These 9 projects that you see here are all located down at the rim, the 300 road and the 87 that's down there. A little over 17,000 acres inside that area, but we're making really good progress. This project right here where my mouse is at now, that's Baker. I am doing the final closeout walk of that project tomorrow. So that's 1,010 acres that have been finished. Our little project here, Cal, 1,600 acres. They've been able to push through because of the lack of snow this year. They've been able to push through that this entire season. And we're actually thinking they may finish that one in the next 3 months. So that's another 1,600 acres down. We're starting to move into Clover. That's a Suarez project. He's moving into there. And so we're seeing active participation on all of these projects. And we're getting a lot of really good acres treated as we move forward. Our next area of concern is around the greater Flagstaff area. Here, right here, we've got 2 primary projects that are we're in the planning phases, or we're going to be starting operations shortly. We have the pump house. We're doing additional data collection inside this one. It's a joint G&A with the Forest Service and DFFM. We're going to get that one done. And then we have, this is our walnut fire. We did some pile burning right at the last meeting as we did, but I spoke with our fire chief today and he's wanting to do additional work out inside that area. So that's still on the horizon for project work to be completed. Our last one that we had was Little Springs, which is north of Flagstaff. That one is essentially all closed. All of the operations that were done in there are complete. That's here. The only thing we have left to do, there's a little bit of road maintenance closeout work to finish that one up. But otherwise, all of the material removal has been completed inside that project. And then finally, we have the 64 corridor. Again, Red Lakes. This is another one where lessons learned from what you guys are doing out at Fort Valley or Baderville is gonna be really huge for us to be able to move forward on Red Lakes. We've done the initial boundary work inside of Red Lakes Phase 1. Red Lakes Phase 2, we've just completed our cultural surveys and sensitive sites information there. So we've got some additional detail there. We're still working on planning that one out. I'm not really sure from leadership's direction how prioritized that one is, but it is on our docket for work to get done. And then finally, we have Woodlands East, which is north on the 64. This one, we are actively working on finishing our planning phases in the next couple months and hope to have an operational plan developed by midsummer for that one to be put out on the market sometime in the fall. That's all the projects that I have now. To go on to what you were asking about is the other project that is going to need additional help from our end is definitely Lake Elaine. As you guys know, it's in that very affluent neighborhood. And one of our biggest concerns is what we've faced in the Red Lakes area. Just you go and you think you do the outreach appropriately, and what you find out later is that you have not done that appropriately. And so what we're trying to do is get ahead of that one. And so being able to take some of these lessons learned, putting up kiosks, doing outreaches with the HOAs, and then also, I think one of the key ones that we're going to try and key on is Firewise, seeing if we can link some of those private property owners in and help remove potential danger trees as part of the project as well, is one of our goals inside that project. But it's just, that one's still in the very, very beginning phases. It's got some complexity to it. There's a nesting bald eagle pair in there. There's MSO restrictions. And like I said, everyone that you talk to in that neighborhood, these are my woods, those are my trees.
Yeah, those are my illegal trespassing trails.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it's about 1,200 acres and it is very high up on our fire shop's concern for.
Let us know when you get to the point where if you want our folks to start prioritizing those perimeter parcels to offer them either by mailers knocking on their door, putting something in there for fire risk assessments, then we can help start identifying recommendations for trees to pull. We're happy to do that.
Beautiful, perfect. Because we're already starting that a little bit with our bark beetle in what the program's called, but it's where we'll go do inspections on trees in people's homes.
WBBI?
Yeah, for bark beetle and other diseases and see if those ones need to be removed. The state will help pay for that removal. And so we're hoping to be able to link all of these up in an ideal world.
Yeah, just gotta find those beetles.
Where'd you say this is at?
Lake Elaine is.
Country Club?
Yes,
Okay.
right over there by Country Club. Yep. Lake Elaine's the biggest feature that I have there for you.
Yeah, I got you. I know where you're talking now.
HOA.
They do.
You said there was also something around Magdalena that you were. Or,
I'd have to get back to you on that one. Sorry.
okay, I may have misunderstood you earlier when we were talking about Magdalena and you mentioned, you may have been referring to Lake.
I think I was-
Okay, I got you. I'm on the same page.
That's our update. Yeah.
Yeah, and potentially whatever we develop some kind of, agenda for a meeting. You could just duplicate that, for that community. Mhm. Yeah,
Very helpful. Not having to recreate the wheel.
yes, yeah. Any questions for Travis? And anybody online have anything to add? You guys have been quiet. We're gonna also, this wasn't on the agenda, but Neil has requested this, plus we'll try to get this on the agenda in the future, but we'd like to see the Flagstaff update.
So brief update from our program, right now, we're deep into what's called the last cap, land use. I forget what last stands for, but it's like a land use suitability study. And the CAP is a code analysis project. So we are trying to adopt the 2024 International Wildland Urban Interface Code. We have a 2006 code that was adopted in 2008. And then all these amendments from the 2006 code basically are the 2024 code. But we're also going to make a few tweaks to it to basically take, we will be proposing to the people who make final decision to make a few tweaks to it to basically take the Institute for Business and Home Safety standards on what they call their wildfire prepared home and basically make all, if we can, all new development in Flagstaff compliant with IBHS wildfire prepared home. It's really almost identical to the 2024 code. The big challenge that we're going to run into is that what we're calling the fuel-free 5. So can we get all new development in Flagstaff and not have flammable material within 5 feet of the home? Retrofitting is a whole other world of pain, but I think we can do this moving forwards because it really is aligned with best available science and how you don't burn down neighborhoods. And the insurance companies really like this. And so the insurance companies aren't in a position right now to say, if you qualify for a wildfire prepared home, we'll give you a discount or make any assurances. But really there is no other, or should I say, there is no better option for us right now that's based on science that seems to have buy-in from, national insurance companies that this is what they're recommending. There's 2 statewide efforts right now with the Department of Insurance and financial institutions around wildfire risk reduction and insurance challenges, and modeling and all this stuff. And that's kind of leaning in the same direction as well. And then there's the Western Fire Chiefs Association effort that's plugging into Arizona as well. So we're going to have a couple meetings in front of City Council and the Planning and Zoning Commission in the next 2 months to propose a pilot project where we're going to try to do some of these things immediately with new development. It's kind of a pilot to say this is what we would like to have permanently. It also includes modifying how we do vegetation management within these developments. So if you're just doing like 8 acres or something, no big deal. But we've got some 200, some 500 acre developments, state land that has been auctioned off and sold, where the historic practice has been just go in and thin to a low tree density before build. And then when you build, there's these community development standards that require you to leave like 50% of the trees. But cutting trees that we probably want to leave, and we're probably leaving trees that we probably want to cut because we don't know that building design when we're cutting the trees. So our pilot that we're requesting is to kind of flip it, where pause worrying about the trees until the community development team has finalized the roads, the driveways, and the built environment kind of structures, then go back to the tree retention. And so we've been talking to Eli Jensen with Ireland Forestry. We've been just working with the engineering firms in town that know how to do this, where basically you can take that LiDAR data and take every tree away. That's where the road, the driveway, and the house is, and basically make that go away. Then you can take every tree within 5 feet of that house, make them go away. And then we can start to say, look at our tree densities outside of that footprint and align it with some of those NFPA guidelines of spacing of, 15 feet if you're within 5 to 30 feet of the house, spacing it of no less than 10 feet if you're within 30 feet to 100 feet, and basically optimize tree retention, considering the built environment versus what we do now, which is just go thin to 40 basal area before you start digging. So we're going to have hopefully a pilot approval to start doing that. We're working with Eli on some modeling. The city has all the city flown with LiDARs in 2019. So the Woody Mountain Road parcel was cut, so that's not exactly up to date. But there's still ways we can use some of that imagery. So that's hopefully going to be a pilot that we then have recommendations that completely change how we do our resource protection standards. And then our landscaping code is also on our radar because that's a nightmare. We basically have the landscaping code that's forcing developers to do things that if, we then, after the place was built, go in there and do a wildfire risk assessment. We'd be like, why are all these juniper bushes right next to your house? You guys made me put them there.
Yeah.
So we've got to get that stuff in alignment. So there's a lot of that vegetation in the city that we're going through right now, kind of redoing a lot of how we think about that. And I think we have largely, just like with all this other stuff, the community supports it. There's a few vocal people out there that you know, are concerned about our urban tree densities. And it's like, well, you know, we're not trying to let the insurance companies dictate what our community looks like, but we're looking at the exact same science that they are looking at. And this is what it's telling us we should be doing. And so we're gonna leave, like, areas now, I don't know if you guys have seen that new condo or apartment complex on Lake Mary Road that's just stacked trees right next to it. I think they topped a tree like halfway up, so it goes up to like a deck or something. And the trees that they elected to be there are spindly and so dense that it's like, those aren't going to ever be healthy trees. And so we're not leaving healthy trees with our current codes and guidelines. So I think we can get that buy-in where it's like, with this method, we're actually gonna be retaining healthier trees than what we're doing now. So kind of the change, some people have used development guidelines in the past to, you know, nobody comes out and says this, but what I'm hearing from people is they've used this tree retention to restrict development. So we can't put as much development on this parcel as we would like, because we have to retain so many trees. And it drives me crazy. It's like, let's build the right neighborhood, worry about trees later, because trees grow, trees die, we can plant trees. And I want the right neighborhoods to be designed that are insurable, that are fire adapted, that are smart. So I think we've got some good changes coming in that space.
Thanks for that. That would have been nice to have when we did the Northern Arizona Healthcare Project in a way. Did you think about that?
Yeah, especially when you're talking,
I
so,
know.
GFFP.
And tell everybody about it a little bit,
Sure.
that's not familiar with
Yeah,
it.
so
Yeah.
GFFP got a grant, 4 years ago to, work on the parcels that were going to be developed for the hospital over, by the airport. There were some early designs of here where the roads are gonna be. There was a lot of power infrastructure, water lines that were gonna go places. And the idea of where the parking lot for the 5-story building that was never zoned, you know, all these different things. So like there were images of future development on that landscape.
The challenge though is like, none of that was approved yet.
Yes, so that's where I was kind of like, okay, but so to cut to the chase, none of that development happened, right? But while we were in the process of, okay, how do we want to thin this area? You know, and I wanted to make the case like, look, this could happen over the next 2 decades. It gets built out, this whole thing.
Right.
So don't tie our hands with like, okay, don't treat this area because we don't want to pay for treating, you know, basically help the developer out with these public funds. And I was trying to make the case to the former state director at the time, which I never actually talked to, which was smart. Because I was like, hey, we don't know this is going to be there, and it didn't happen. But there were certain areas where they just drew a circle and said, you cannot do anything here because we know this is going to get developed later.
It's gonna get bulldozed, yeah.
So I think that situation was a little bit different. You know, we didn't do the groupie clumping there because we really wanted to spread things out, and it was really overly dense. And so you know, the work that we did is going to withstand, like, at some point that will get developed.
Yep.
And there are a lot of trees and there are a lot of options. But just thinking as you were talking about that, you know, which one comes first, I was kind of like, okay, you know, if it's like, yes, this is the approved plan and now we're going to go in and treat it, like that makes sense. But if it's like, here's this area that needs to be treated immediately because of fire danger.
Right.
But we have this ongoing process to develop it. I think that's where that would make me a little bit nervous because.
That's why we're calling it a pilot for now, where we can kind of give a developer the opportunity to opt in to participate in this pilot.
Mhm.
If they don't want to, then what we're basically telling people is cut to the lowest basal area allowable within our forest management plan for the city. Because then if you're going to be required to retain 50% of the trees until we have a smarter code that comes together, then at least you're only retaining 50% of the lowest amount to start with. So don't just leave it at like 80, 100 basal area or something, even though that's within the natural range of variability in some sites, but we don't want it right there. Get in there and get a big cutout. So when you do have to go through this tree retention as part of the resource protection standards, it's a lot fewer trees.
I mean, it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, you can't really predict what the markets are gonna do, when development's gonna happen.
And so like we're drafting this permit that they will have to fill out for us. to verify their thinning plan as either part of the pilot or not part of the pilot. And if it is part of the pilot, we have a line in there like, well, what's your timeline? It's like 10 years. It's like, well, we don't want to wait 10 years for you to reduce the wildfire risk on this parcel, because the whole intent of the thinning before building is don't build on a site that has extreme wildfire danger. So that's the first thing we can do is like, what's your plan to reduce wildfire risk? And then can we do it in a smart way, or do we just need to do something now?
The other caveat is whenever you're doing any kind of development is it's cheaper and easier, faster to knock a tree down while it's still like to just bulldoze a tree down and then cut it up and do whatever you want to with the tree versus cutting a tree off and having to deal with a stump and having to dig out a stump. It's just more efficient to do it, just pushing the tree over and get the stump and everything out. So it's trying to get that timing down is difficult because we didn't want to wait on the NAH property. It was like, we needed to get it thinned.
Yep.
Now, because again,
And that's honestly, our codes right now say that it has to be thinned before they can finalize anything within the resource protection standards. So basically, the fire department has to check a box that says this site complies with our forest management plan before community development staff can engage in that nightmare of a scenario that the builders and the developers and everybody feels, but it's build a community. So that's what we're trying to basically say is now we're gonna hit a little pause button that says, no, do your community development thing, then come back to the fire department is an option rather than just getting in there first.
Nice, and I wanted to bring it to your attention, Travis, that during that project, the DFFM would not let us thin 40 acres on that Northern Arizona healthcare parcel.
Okay.
So it abuts Fort Todd Hill. So it's a pretty important area as far as, fire danger goes. So if you ever have a little bit of money, I don't know if it would be worth it to have somebody go in there. I mean, it's such an easy access area, like a logger that was on his way home or something.
Well, that one area that was left is kind of like,
Where is that?
it's
Yeah,
the
project.
northernmost piece, and so
Okay.
road access isn't the best, and there's those power lines.
Okay.
It's still doable.
Yeah, but do you think it would be worth it? At 40 acres that were deferred? I mean, it was basically, they just told us we couldn't cut in there. We applied for the total acres, but it was mostly because it was being developed. And it was a different administration as well, so.
Yeah. It certainly could be. Yeah, my other gripe, just, it's like, here's the budget for this many acres, we're gonna divide it by this many, we're losing, and go forth and do it. It's like, well, that's not really how budgets work. We have some fixed costs in there. It's like, whatever, just do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Neil. Any questions for Neil? Okay, Tavi, you're on with the forest industry update.
All right. I'd like to say about that. The extended lack of snow has kept folks pretty busy, which has been unusual. The overall kind of markets for lumber and timber, which is not really where our wood goes, but we're affected by it. Timber prices, or lumber prices rather, are up, which has some different effects with our processors down here. When lumber prices go up, the folks that make pallets, and they have the option to make it out of dry wood, so stuff that's coming on rail, that becomes a little bit more expensive, so it kind of pushes them a little bit more towards buying the restoration wood that we're doing, so that can be a good thing. Of course, the opposite happens when those lumber prices go down, and that makes that other material really inexpensive and makes our work here more difficult. We will see the proposed tariffs against Canadian wood could have a lot of different effects. I'm not sure what we'll feel there, but the different set of tariffs, but the products coming from Mexico, if they do get tariffed, I've said this before, I think a lot of folks know this, but a lot of the wood that gets cut here ends up in Mexico and then gets resawn and made into a pallet, and then Mexican products flow across the border to the US. So if there's a disruption in what moves from Mexico on a pallet, so if it goes to US, okay, that's kind of status quo, but if it has to go, maybe it's a different country because of changes with where goods are being sent. If it doesn't flow on a pallet, that could really affect what we're doing here. So if it still remains on a pallet and in a container and across the ocean or whatever, we're probably fine. But you know, that could be pretty disruptive if that changes. Got some data hit, and then there's other industry folks here too that may want to talk.
Yeah, thanks. Sawmill in Belmont's continuing the ramp, which is exciting. They're actually making me work for a little bit, which is great. So we're getting ready to get the logging season started, probably mid-April, early May. Starting to get some things moving. Have heard from a few folks that the wing sale is more of a priority as far as fire danger. So I've shuffled that one to the top of the deck. We're going to get in there sooner than we had otherwise planned. McCarty, as well as the Bree sale out there, we're going to be getting into those, it looks like, as well. So starting to get some things moving. Expect a much more aggressive operating pace this year than we saw last year, which is going to be good for everyone, I think. But yeah, looking at basically the ramp steepening over the course of the summer. I think we're going to get up at this point, forecasting somewhere in the 80 loads a day inbound as we get into the fall. So yeah, Frog and Newman Park bootleg, those are also on the list. Just there's a little birdie out there that's kind of in our way. So looking at what we got to do to get started in this, late spring. And then it sounds like hopefully by midsummer, we might have some hopefully wildlife relief if that's what happens. And we can get out there and kind of finish chewing up some of that area. Get the loads moving in. So continuing to look at acres, building our timber under contract portfolio so that we can, have that kind of runway foreseeable, keep things operating regardless of what weather does or anything like that. So all very good stuff. And yeah, I think, tariffs are a big part of the conversation. We don't really know what's going to happen fully, but any increase in pricing is a good thing for the sawmill, right? The more money they make, the more acres they're going to let me go treat. So looking forward to seeing some resolution there. And yeah, outside of that, some of the biomass folks, not going to name names or anything, but it seems like we're starting to get a little bit more serious inquiries. Let's put it that way. Traditionally, Jay and Neil probably know, Tavi knows, like over the years, everyone's, I got this idea, right? But when you have an anchor like the sawmill in Belmont, where you have some fixed production that you can guarantee, you're all of a sudden able to then go get financing in a way that you weren't previously. So looking forward to seeing what comes of those. It is a 12 or 18 month kind of best case scenario build out for most of these facilities. Not a light switch, it's just going to flip and be changed. But if we get a west side offtake, I think everyone's going to be smiling on that one. So yeah, overall, like I said, just taking a little bit of the lull right now in between, let's call it winter. But looking forward to letting the loggers off the leash and letting them go do their thing coming up this next year. And yeah, the one thing I do want to mention for anyone that hasn't been through the mill, or if you haven't been through in a year or so, it's definitely worth the trip. They're moving some product through there, which is really good to see. And it's their couple, a year ago wasn't the coolest tour. Today you really get to see nothing stopping and starting. Everything is just kind of smooth, steady she goes, watching the logs circles turning into squares at an aggressive pace. So yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah, we had a meeting recently. I think a bunch of us in the room have been talking to some group that's looking at ways to utilize like sawmill residuals or some different methods. And that was exciting because I feel like we always hear people talk about biomass and it's like, I hate to say it, but we can, we would like to not burn piles, but we can burn piles.
Yeah.
We don't exactly burn residuals.
Yeah, and the same mill residuals have the same offtake markets of forest slash. I mean, it is all one product in a sense, right? This, whether it's chips from the woods or chips from the mill, still wood chips.
Well, we're getting a few inquiries now that are more specifically wanting the clean chip, which is more of a mill residue.
Yep.
Which has a little bit higher value to them. So I'd love to see some of that come in where we do still have the bark, needles, limbs, all that stuff needs to go someplace where it's going to be low value no matter what.
Yeah.
And then if we can add some value to your chips, and I think that just helps your model too. So
Yeah, like I said, the better the sawmill does, the more acres they're gonna let me go treat. So, that really is the end result is the more the more of an economy for the residuals we can build locally, the better this overall effort is gonna go, right?
Give some examples of the biomass, more serious inquiries for the biomass production.
No.
Okay, darn it.
Yeah. No, at this point, like we're actually moving into like with various people, NDAs, MOUs. It's
Gotcha.
getting much more serious, which is, yeah.
Wow, that's exciting.
Yeah,
But
so
eventually you'll be able to tell us.
I think you'll see a press release at some point.
Okay.
But once again, just because we're talking a little bit more detail doesn't mean that they're shovel ready or that it'll ever execute. So just, I've been listening for the last 11 years about, hey, I have this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna, okay.
magic box.
Yeah, the black box, you just put stuff in, money comes out. But, getting into more of a detailed conversation, I think in that space is very, very useful. And it's not necessarily just sawmill residuals that they're after. Almost everyone, depending on their tonnage, they're looking to get chips off of other loggers, other sales, other opportunities to de-risk their portfolio, as well as increase the story and the messaging on their end for, if wood chips are the primary thing, you might want to go get some of the out of the forest as well, just to say you did. So, yeah, there's, like I said, good stuff. Hopefully by near term we'll start to see some of these contracts coming in and things moving forward a little bit more aggressively. Really just takes the first one setting their, hanging their shingle, right? Saying, here we are, and the confidence will build that, hey, this is something that can develop. So.
Yeah, and the number of loads, like how does that compare to what you've done in the past? What you're estimating? I think you said 80, right?
Yeah, so I think, so your standard, I'll put it in acres. It'll be a little bit easier. I think you just have to figure a load an acre, right?
Right.
Standard logging side is 1,500 acres a year, maybe 2,000 if they're really getting after it. We expect to do 12,000 this year. So it's going to be much more of an aggressive pace. Bringing it, each acre is different. Not all acres yield the exact same thing. There's some real small scrubby stuff out there and there's some real big stuff. Both of those are problems for the sawmill. It was purpose built for that small and medium diameter timber, right? The sweet spot of about a 9-inch DBH, which is kind of what's out there, right? We can go almost up to a 20-inch at the butt and all the way down at least a 6-inch. We'll see if we can get below 6. It's a very inefficient at that point. You make any defect in that log and that's a wasted piece of timber. But yeah, really trying to get the majority of the profile. A couple of the big log guys, the Chino, Valleys, Heber, they can take that bigger diameter timber, which is great. So there's still a home for it. Not necessarily that this group would be interested, but I think next phase is trying to work on an east-west corridor hauling, shared hauling kind of thing, back hauling small diameter from the east side, large diameter from the west side, be able to create some of those systems in place where we got enough people working. It is one stand of timber after all. Let's all come together and try to figure this out collectively. Very early stages. It's more of an idea than it is anything at this point. But if we can get a few of those kind of efficiencies, figuring out the backhauls, helping lower the cost of transport, all of that is positive.
Great. Any questions or comments for Kevin?
I'm not planning on sharing anything. My computer was about to die and I realized I'm recording the meeting, so I had to plug it in.
Oh, there you go. That's why we have the pretty picture. I like it. Great. I did want to mention to anybody else on forest industry update before we move on. Want to add? Do you have anything to add? Industry update?
Yeah, I can share. We have quite a few acres under contract around the Flagstaff area. Unfortunately, we were impacted by some of the federal funding freezes and issued essentially an organization-wide stop work order. Fortunately, that has been lifted. Unfortunately, however, a lot of those loggers already took off and demobilized. So that's kind of on the top of my list is working with some of our operators to remobilize projects. Top of the list, of course, being the Schultz Tank Hampton work along Matt's favorite trail there, as well as the Marshall project. That project currently, they have intent to return this spring, continue efforts working. Again, just they got to kind of put the piece of the puzzle together. So yeah, they're going to do that. As it sits right now, we're at about 850 acres of cut skip deck process, as well as TSI, and about 325 acres chipped, chip-in wood, so slash treatment. And unfortunately, due to the timing, we're also running into the pesky MSO restrictions. So that project may be pushed out a year pending capacity and how many sites they can get out there.
You guys have an ETA on the DERFR offering?
We're currently waiting on our federal agreement. So we're hoping in a perfect world to advertise that project in late April, early May, with intent to essentially start work as soon as feasible. And with this winter, ground conditions will allow. So.
Yeah, hoot owl conditions.
Yeah.
Thinking about going down to Marshall in May. Is that going to work out? They might not be implementing that.
To be determined. I'm hoping to learn more in the next couple of weeks on
Okay.
their timelines. The recent update I received is they're hoping to return within the next few weeks, at least with the skeleton crew, have one side running, one chipper, something at least to keep some headway and momentum going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they're up in, is it Oregon?
Yeah, they're based
Yeah,
out of
so I
Oregon,
thought-
heavily
yeah.
based in Washington, Oregon,
Mhm.
Northern California.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's rough. They had to leave. Now they're like, oh, no, you can come back. Is it totally open now where they could do full operations again or with the funding?
With the funding, yes. I would say, Cody, you probably know better than I, about 40 to 50, about half the project area, 60% is with an MSO or goshawk restrictions.
Right.
However, they've done a great job of prioritizing those time restricted units and acres. So, once they can get back out there and with the weather we're having, I don't, ground conditions will allow them to be back out working once they can remobilize.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love to say yes, May should work.
Okay, so we'll keep it on there for now.
Yeah.
We'll just see how it goes. Yeah. And I was thinking also for the FWPP Dry Lake Hills potential field tour, I was thinking that it worked out so well last year doing it Labor Day weekend, that Friday. Maybe we could do it again for then. It just seemed like the timing was really good for people for that day, but, or we can flip flop the two field tours and potentially do that one sooner and then do Marshall later, but we can see, yeah, on that. Any other questions? Any other industry updates? 5 minutes left. The annual report, 2024 GFFP's annual report was sent with the agenda. So you can see what we were up to last year. We have, 2 exciting projects. One is Lowell Observatory. We're going to be thinning about 600 acres there, hopefully to start in the spring. We have heard that we're okay with the funding. For a while, we weren't sure. And so right now it's looking like thumbs up. So we've been working on agreements, just getting that all set up so that hopefully we can begin maybe a little earlier than we thought if the weather, and the roads aren't all muddy and,
Yeah, it'll be great. I mean, there are, we're in a different spot, so it sounds like R4 is looking for some more acres. Some of the other contractors have started to build their portfolio of acres. So, yeah, I'm not gonna, so it might just, implementation may not be immediate for some of the larger projects or smaller. I think folks have done a good job of moving around based on other restrictions. So whatever we can kind of offer, paved road or something where they can kind of keep working, that's going to help out with the projects. So we'll see. And then, still to be determined on how many new acres the Forest Service is putting up, versus partner acres. I didn't hear anything about G to Z, which is okay. We'll wait on that for a different time unless there's some update. But, there's a lot of things out there that, folks really want consistency and to be able to plan. And we're getting there. But I think what that might take away is that immediate implementation for some of these, because folks are starting to be built up. I mean, 3 years ago, the FFM wasn't sitting at the table, and now they've got however many acres. And so it's all to the good. And we've got other folks ramping up and the industry capacity is starting to build. But we're still a little bit limited with that. Okay, where can we take all this stuff?
But to that point, I think we're definitely interested in gatewood agreements with the local industry. I'm not going to get into the previous years and the history of what we were able to do and what the challenge was to rebuild. But at the time, we had to bring in external help. But it was just kind of how that played out. Going forward, local volume is something that we're definitely interested in. So where instead of me bringing an additional logging site in from somewhere else, we could certainly buy from the local capacity, especially surplus capacity outside of, what's needed at the pallet mills and other things. I think that's all very, very good conversation, especially as we get into the summer and fall. Being able to utilize the local industry is something that's important to me. And I think, to the company as a whole.
And the only other thing I wanted to mention also is that we're also working on 2 CWPPs, not really we, but we are, it is we. One is through City Flagstaff or actually PFAC, Ponderosa Fire Advisory Council for the city of, for the greater Flagstaff area, CWPP. That is an update. And then we are also completing novel CWPP for the rest of outside of the GFA, Greater Flagstaff area, for the rest of Coconino County. And we have officially started our kickoff meeting, which was really exciting because this is, I think we started talking about this in January of 23 or sooner maybe. I know, anyway, it's pretty exciting that. And so we'll keep you informed. There are a lot of you, or a lot of organizations that will be sitting on the core team. I look around and I see a lot of organizations that will be sitting on our core team. And so we really appreciate, we'll really appreciate your time. You'll be hearing from us pretty soon because we're going to be setting up probably our first core team meeting that will be happening about the 3rd week of April. And get a lot of folks on board. So I know we have folks from the Coke, from the KIVAB, and from DFFM, and from ERI. I mean, I'm looking around, but if there are folks that APS, you're as well. APS, so SRP, all the major players are going to be sitting on the core team, and it's going to be, I think, really, really helpful. We're really serving with this CWPP rural fire districts and tribes that are in Coconino County proper. And so these are really fire districts that really don't have the resources and the capacity to really think about this and pull this off. And so we're pretty excited that we can help them. A few of them did have CWPs, but they're all out of date. They're all over 10 years old. And so we're super excited to offer them this capacity building and the resources that they need. And basically once it's done, and a lot about this is that we want it to be very actionable. and they will have a 5-year action plan so that they can look and they say, what's our list? What do we need to work on? And if they need funding for it, they can apply for funding. And all they have to do is point to page number section, and this is where it is, right? And it's really going to help with their ability to successfully be funded as well. Yeah.
We submitted our request for statement of qualifications to our procurement folks like 2 weeks ago. So we should, at some point in April, see that posted online and start getting some bids back, and May, June, have some sort of contractor lined up.
Great. Yeah. Yeah, we were all at a little bit of a pause for a while there just because of all the funding uncertainties, but now it seems like everything's on track, at least so far. So that's really, really good news. Does anybody have any other last comments or questions before we end?
I just wanted to point out, someone did post something in the chat
Oh, thank
requesting
you.
you to keep them in the loop on the CWPP.
Oh, really good. Yep, I will do that. Mary Lou, ML. Mary Lou didn't have a chance to introduce herself. Mary Lou. Wow, with the board writing. You bet, Mary Lou.
We were able to go submitted the grant, another CWTG grant for that community outreach.
Was it the Coconino County Community Outreach or Wildfire Outreach Program? It's essentially to help implement activity 3 within the greater Flagstaff area, CWPP, which is just further engaging community and, outreach methods to help folks enact firewise practices or adjacent programs within our communities in the greater Flagstaff area. So hopefully we'll get approved.
And if you do get approved, it'd be good, I think, for you to talk with the city of Flagstaff and Mark Adams, because they've been working on this program.
Yes.
And also the way like you can connect the two programs so that, you know what I mean? So you're not duplicating, but you're also complementing.
Yeah, the goal is to kind of, just county, city integration.
Yeah,
Work a little more closely.
yeah, it's exciting. I hope it happens.
On a united front.
It's needed.
It is.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay, guys, we will try to reschedule Mike. I was really looking forward to his talk, but he said he had a terrible night last night. He was really, really sick. So we'll try to reschedule him for a future meeting. But hope you all have a great week, and it's good to see everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.